In the name of Jesus, amen. The text is going to be from John 14, and I begin by asking you, this is a loaded question. How many of you have any questions about this whole coronavirus thing? How it started? Is the lockdown necessary? What's next? Can we possibly trust any of the people making the decisions or peddling the cure? And there's a bunch more y'all probably have that I don't even know about. I don't know if we're ever going to find the truth of the matter. Except that it probably involves large amounts of money. But I bring this up today because I recently finished a book called The Pageant of World History, which I thought was a clever title for a work of history, and I like history. Always have. My kids hate it. My wife hates it. I love history. So I read it. It's a textbook, I think, from the middle school grades, which my wife, if she were here, would say I never really left anyway. So it's fairly well written, and it's easy to follow, which is no small task for a work that claims to put all of history in one book. And I'm pretty sure I never read anything back in middle school when I was supposed to. So, well, the one thing that the book did that interested me the most is he tells us how the 4 major religions of the world got started. And I think everybody thinks they know these things, but I'm not so sure we do. At different parts of the world, at different points in history. And what that book reminded me is religion is a major player in the stage of world history. Wherever you find yourself, religion of some kind has almost always been there. And I wondered this week especially if that's because people are always looking for answers. I don't think we during this pandemic are the first people to ever search for the truth. I know what? It's true. So can anybody, smart people in this room probably can, anybody tell me what the 4 major religions of the world are? Think hard. I'll make it easier for you. They lumped Judeo-Christianity, this book did, into one. So Judaism and Christianity, which I think is good, personally. It's all part of God's ongoing plan for his people. So Judeo-Christianity is one. Other guesses?
Jehovah's Witness?
What's that?
Jehovah's Witness?
Jehovah's Witness? That's a great, I'm not going to let y'all guess no more. Don't mess up my sermon. No more. Where would we put them? That's it. Now, major, I think, is the term here. I don't know if he means by numbers or...
Like Buddhism?
Buddhism's one.
Okay.
So we got Judeo-Christianity, Buddhism.
Muslim?
Y'all are way too quiet.
Muslim one?
How did nobody get Islam yet? Islam. And there's one more that most people wouldn't get, and that it would be Hindu. Lots of people in India.
Yes.
So major, I guess, numbers. So I'm going to go through this a little bit today because I have a point in it. I hope I do. Did you know that Islam got its start at about 650 years after the time of Jesus? You all probably know. It was started by a guy named Muhammad, who was a camel trader. And what most people don't know is that he became very familiar with Judeo-Christianity. Because we're 600-700 years into the story of Christianity, it spread. In other words, he'd already learned about the truth. He should have stopped there with Judeo-Christianity. If he would have taken Judeo-Christianity with the verve that he took his own religion, it would have saved the world a lot of pain. But as all the world knows, he did not. He basically started his religion because he was disgusted with the lack of morality of his Arabian people. He wanted a religion that would whip them right back into shape. So he was in a cave, mourning the debauched state of his neighbors, when the angel Gabriel showed up in a cave. And Gabriel told Muhammad there's only one true God, and that is not named Jesus, but Allah. And I want you, Muhammad, be Allah's prophet. And so that's really how it started. It is almost that simple. The truth is, though, Muhammad then traded his camel for a horse and began a lifelong effort to convert people to his new God. By force. There's no other way to look at it historically. I challenge you to read the history. In fact, if he had not been stopped at a place called Tours, which was in France, you would all have Muslim surnames instead of Germanic. They were all would have. Anyway, so there's one major religious choice for you: a camel trader who had visions of angels. Choice 2, even better. Hinduism started in India. What do y'all know about Hinduism? I knew absolutely nothing. I kept a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Islam, obviously. Here's this simple story. Hinduism started because people of ancient India like to worship nature. I do too sometimes. Got to be careful. So I see there was a sunset Thursday night or whatever it was, just before that big moon came up. I'm standing there in much more awe of that than I am the cross and the empty tomb. So I'm not hating on being moved by nature. They had gods for the sun, the sky, storms, fire. They got gods for all sorts of stuff. I didn't know, or I'd forgotten, is that Hindu worship services, at least at the beginning, included the drinking of something called soma juice. Soma being the Greek term for body, and I don't know if that etymology has anything to do with it. I have no. But from what I understand, it is the Indian version of white lightning, if you know what white lightning is. We don't know what that is. We'll tell nobody. So literally after passing around a jar, this is how their worship service goes. They sang some holy songs, and they sang these holy songs to nature to make sure that their souls went to karma after death. Y'all have heard that. People use that term. And there at karma, they would be rewarded or punished based on the kind of life they lived on earth. So that's world religion. I think there might be some reincarnation in it too. Can't remember. Choice number 2. You can drink soma juice and sing hymns to the sun, clouds, sky, and fire if you are so inclined. Not making this up. Which brings us to number 3, Buddhism, which I think is the best story, except for Judeo-Christianity. Year 563, so Islam and Buddhism were not started that far apart. A prince was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas. I don't even know where the Himalayas are. What country is that? India?
On the north end of India.
Okay, so that's where the big mountain, right? What's the big mountain called?
Everest.
Thank you. That's where Everest is, ain't it? All right, so somewhere in the foothills of these mountains, a prince was born, and his name was Gautama. But let's be honest, Buddhist is much more fun to say. Being a prince, he was raised, I don't know if it was a big village, but his dad must have been the king or whatever it was. Being a prince, he was raised in luxury and safety, because that's what you do if you're the king. And his father did not want him to ever know sorrow. I used to want that for my kids too. But as we all know, that's not possible. Sorrow is going to find you. So eventually, little Gautama learned all about sorrow. Not hard to do. Learned about evil, illness, suffering, and death. And so the legend has it he was so moved by all this, once he finally saw it, that he up and left his position of wealth and comfort, and he went to live alone in the forest. And it was out there in the woods where he was exposed to even more suffering and torment, I'm assuming, that he found the answers to life's questions. So after 7 years, he was out there for 7 years, Gautama returned to civilization, and he did so to spread his ideas that he had learned out in the woods. And a bunch of people started to follow him around, or we wouldn't be talking about him. He wouldn't be in every Chinese restaurant in Pima County. A bunch of people followed him. They gave him the name Buddha, which means enlightened one. And it said he never wrote anything down. And he would be the first one to tell you that he was not God, or at least what he's been lifted to now. But he did teach that in order to be happy, you have to be unselfish. I don't know that I disagree with that. Buddha taught the desire for material things, and I think it's an important distinction, not material things themselves. But he said the desire for material things was the cause of all pain and evil. Also taught that gossip, lies, stealing, and killing were bad. So it sounds to me like he done find himself a copy of the Ten Commandments out there in the woods. He taught that if you lived right, didn't do any of those things, killing, stealing, lying, gossiping, and if you denied all your stuff, if you did all that, you could reach nirvana, which is not a grunge band from Seattle, but a painless, ideal existence. Get rid of your stuff, don't kill nobody, and you will have heaven. So that would be the Reader's Digest version of 3 of the 4 major religions. You can hitch your eternal wagon to a camel driver who had visions of angels and used his sword to promote his religion. You can worship clouds. Or you can move into the woods and live under a tree and get rid of your stuff. Those are the options. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. Or you can simply read St. John's Gospel lesson for today, where we learn about the world's other major religion. And what struck me about, how many of you have heard those words before? I am the way, the truth, and the life. So many times. Such a magnificent, game-changing statement. Anyway, in today's gospel reading from the very first century, the very first disciples of our Lord were looking for the truth. And they said, yeah, well, Jesus, right, is God gonna, would you show us, I forgot about, was it Thomas saying, when are you going to show us the face of the Father? They wanted to, everybody wants the truth, including those of us in this room today. But these guys right here in the Gospel of John were fortunate, blessed, whatever word you want to use, because the truth just happened to be standing right in front of them. They didn't have anything to do with that. Let's face it, they could have been born in another time, another place. They could have ended up worshiping ladybugs or volcanoes. But they were looking for the truth just like everybody else, and this is the answer which the incarnate Son of God gave them. The answer that I've so long taken for granted. Jesus said, I am the way. I am the truth. And I am the life. And no one's coming to the Father except through me. With the way things are right now, that simple sentence just hit me a lot harder than it usually does. Which I think is a sermon for another day, how casually and callously I so often treat the things my Lord says. How often I read, I am the way, truth, and the life, and think, okay, what's for lunch? So with regard to the truth, I'm here to tell you, I don't know all things. As of this week, I don't even know whether wearing a mask is supposed to help or hinder. Depends on who you talk to. I know I've devoted most of my life to the study of religion. And by the grace of God, I was taught by some brilliant people. But it took an 8th grade history book, 8th grade pagan history book, to remind me of the truth. I was asking my wife a couple weeks ago, what am I supposed to say to people at a time like this? And ironically, this is off script, so we might have to edit it.
No.
I don't know what this means, but the bishops made us all, the guys for the district, 200 guys roughly, Zoom. Can you imagine? I don't know how you get all 200 little heads on the screen. But Zoom, and he had us talk to a psychiatrist. Bishop thinks we're nuts. That's probably right. But she was very helpful. and has taught me that you can be deeply theological and also understand psychology. And so I'm praying now for her and other people who hold that job of being a Christian. And she went all the way, clinical. She was very, very helpful. But she boiled stuff down to the simplest essence. And the one thing that struck me was, she said, I'm having guys call every day. And you know what the pastors are saying to her? She says, the guys, all my people are watching other guys on the internet. What am I supposed to do? She laughed. You could hear, you could see she wanted to say, well, you think you're the only preacher in the world? She said, stop worrying about stuff like that. So whatever it is y'all are worrying about, stop. Don't compare yourself to somebody who does wear gloves or doesn't wear gloves, or does wear a mask or doesn't wear a mask, or does stay home or doesn't stay home, or all that stuff. She said, stop. Sometimes I think things are better if we boil them down to their simplest essence, like they do in an 8th grade history book. The truth is, again, you can worship and believe in the visions of an 8th century camel salesman. You can worship and believe in waterfalls and trees. You can worship and believe in moving out into the woods and leaving everything behind, or the couple other options that book didn't say. I guess you can worship and believe in yourself, or you can worship and believe in nothing. Those are the choices. Or by the grace of God, you could worship and believe in the one found right here in St. John's eyewitness account. Reading that history book clarified for me there is no contest in the matter. There really isn't. In the person of Jesus Christ, we have found the truth, I wanted to say, but more precisely, the truth has found us. The truth has came down from heaven and was born unto us. You can bet eternity on that simply by reading history books. But if this brief overview of the other choices of history doesn't help convince you that Christianity is the way, the truth, and the life, I'm going to close with this. No one in any other religion ever died for you. No one. Not Buddha, not Allah, not Vishnu. No one. More to the point, no one in any of these other choices ever was raised from the dead to give you life. So I don't know if China, Washington, D.C., the CDC, or Dr. Fauci is telling us the truth. I have no idea. But I know that Jesus Christ is the truth. And what I learned from that book this week, history shows us quite clearly we should be thankful. Because that's not an emotion that I've been feeling a lot the last 6 weeks. Thankful. I've been feeling a lot of other ones, but not thankful. We should be thankful every minute of our lives that God has brought us to the truth in Jesus Christ. And history, maybe even especially the tumultuous part of history we are now traveling through, history begs us to proclaim this truth of Jesus Christ every chance we get. Begs us. However, we have to do it. And so I pray that God would give us the grace to do just that.